For the first year of producing, I had no idea what any of my effects actually did. I'd open a reverb, move a knob until it sounded vaguely like something I'd heard before, and leave it there. Same with compression, same with EQ, same with delay. I was copying presets and calling it mixing. My tracks came out muddy and amateur, and I couldn't diagnose why because I didn't understand the tools well enough to even ask the right question. What changed wasn't finding a better plugin, it was understanding what each effect was actually doing to the sound at a physical level. Once I had that, everything else followed. EQ is the one to understand first because it affects everything downstream. All it does is cut or boost specific frequency ranges, the lows, the mids, the highs, everything in between. Every sound in a mix occupies frequency space, and when too many sounds compete for the same range, it turns into a wall where nothing sits clearly. EQ is how you carve room for each element. I spent too long boosting things trying to make them louder when the actual move was cutting other sounds to make space. Cutting almost always sounds more natural than boosting, and that took me an embarrassingly long time to accept. Compression controls dynamic range, the difference between the quietest and loudest moments in a sound. When something peaks too hard or has notes that jump out inconsistently, a compressor brings those peaks down automatically, so the level feels controlled and even. The reason it makes things feel punchier isn't magic, it's that once the peaks are tamed, you can push the whole thing louder without clipping. I used to slam compression onto everything because it sounded more professional. It just made everything feel squashed and lifeless. The goal is transparent control, not crushing the life out of a sound. Reverb adds space and depth, simulating what a sound would feel like in a physical environment. The mistake I made for a long time was using too much of it, which pushed sounds into the background and made everything feel like it was recorded underwater. The way I use reverb now is subtly, mostly on send channels so I can control exactly how much of each sound gets treated. And I always high pass the reverb return so the low end stays dry. Wet low end is one of the fastest ways to ruin a mix. Delay repeats a sound after a short time gap, with the repeats fading out. The difference from reverb is that delay has rhythmic character. Sync it to your tempo and suddenly a vocal or synth line has movement and air without feeling distant. A short delay that nobody consciously notices but that makes a vocal feel wider and alive is one of my favorite things to do in a mix. Saturation adds harmonic content by gently distorting a sound, which makes things feel warmer, fuller, and more present without necessarily making them louder. It's what makes digital sounds feel less sterile. I add light saturation to almost everything now. Drums, synths, bass, sometimes the master bus. And the difference between a mix with and without it is the difference between something that came out of a computer and something that feels like a person made it. A limiter is a compressor with a hard ceiling. Nothing passes above the threshold you set, ever. It sits last on the master chain and stops the mix from clipping when the output gets too hot. For a long time, I confused limiting with mastering and thought a limiter on the master bus meant the track was finished. It doesn't. Limiting is a safety net, not a finish line. These 6 are in every session I open. Everything else, chorus, flanger, phaser, bit crusher, is texture I reach for when I have a specific problem or specific sound in mind. But EQ, compression, reverb, delay, saturation, and limiting are the vocabulary. Understand what they're actually doing before you worry about anything else.